engineers. But Lebanese have, the sense of they're hospitable, right? So they're adaptable, they connect, they can be a bridge. If you heard what Omar was saying this morning, it's really true. And we're street smart, I don't know if I want to claim we're street smart, but we always had everything not working around us. And whether you or your parents, right, came and made it to the US, right? It's an achievement, right? And you have great food. And this is why I focus on food. I came to the US, and just to give you a brief background, I founded Kearney in 2007 in Dubai. It was our first project in Dubai, and I started with them. I was an analyst back then. I was a part of a team of 3 people. And after working in economic zones and all those fancy words, which means, helping governments in the region diversify their economies, I came into the US, and they told me, what's your focus? I said, well, in the region, in the Middle East, I worked on 5 special economic zones, which are, think about it, big plots of land where the governments usually diversify their economy away from oil, right? So I used to focus on that. Really very driven by economy. I love, economics in general, if you've taken courses in economics. And the staffer in our office said, well, we don't have a lot of economic zones here in the US. You better figure out what you want to do. So I started working as a consultant across different industries until I landed into food projects. And I remember going in, I said, wow, this is a sector that is going to be disrupted. Whatever happened in the last 10,000 years is going to be completely different of how the food chain is going to happen in the next 50 years. So I want to just maybe start with that thought, right? And tell you why do I think that way. But first, let me just give you a brief background of why did I choose consulting as a career? Why would anyone want to go as consulting as a career? And maybe linking to what Omar was saying this morning, where in your 20s or 30s, you don't really know what you want to do, or you just, even if you think that you want to put a plan of what you want to do, you don't know what you want to do. When I was actually starting, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I knew I did a bunch of internships. I did not enjoy any of them. I enjoyed the fact of being able to do different things. So my career advisor told me, consider consulting, because you can have the entire space of industries, aerospace to real estate to healthcare and different service practices, strategy to M&A, supplier, etc., IT transformation. All of that sounds sexy, right? But what does it mean? What does a consultant do? That's the hardest question, right? Every time I go to Lebanon, talking to my grandmother or talking to my mom, and what do you actually do? What does it mean to be a consultant? So wait, what does consulting mean? Well, perceptions differ. My nephew, who's 3 years old, he says, my uncle does paper. He sees me on PowerPoint. He says, no, this is not hard, right? Like, you draw, I draw, right? Like, this is not hard, right? My mom thinks, how many reports and recommendation can you say, right? Like, how many reports you can put on the shelf? And my grandmother said, so you're a businessman? You're in finance? Said, okay, sure. But, we'd like to think that you're at the frontier of counterintuitive thinking. Okay, drivers of change, essentially. Why do people hire consultants? Because they want to change. Why can they not rely on their organization? Because either they're siloed or they haven't seen all the other industries and what we've done. And basically, in a very disciplined way, we can apply change, ask the right questions, and help them cruise through that change. We're not here as, I'm the expert telling you what you need to do. No, we're driving counterintuitive thinking. So here's a few quotes. A client of ours said, you really helped articulate what you wanted to do and drive it successfully into implementation. And, they use paradigm shift, right? It's lovely, right? But essentially, what really, as a consultant, you want to do is basically, be the strategic advisor, be all about essential rightness, drive what is true. And beyond consulting, when you think of food, I think what you do as a consultant is basically try to bring meaning to what you do. So we work a lot with NGOs, Feeding America as an example, on food waste. So, you can apply a lot what you do to bring in meaning and essential rightness. Okay? So how to decide whether consulting is the right career? If you enjoy problem solving. I like asking questions. I like solving problems, right? That becomes, an essence of what you want to do. Second, if you're able to be yourself, in a lot of jobs, you're gonna go and you're gonna fake it in the interview. You're gonna try to be, someone different. But frankly, you wanna be yourself regardless. If you're yourself and you're happy, that's what counts. You're gonna spend so much time at work and with people around that you have to be happy and really enjoy doing what you want. And the last one is grow. You wanna grow professionally because you really owe it to yourself, right? To whatever you do, you wanna actually be in a place where it opens doors. I'm gonna take you why consulting for each one of those is actually the right career. So first of all, enjoying problem solving. Well, I've worked in consumer and retail. I've worked in M&A, and then I've also worked across industries, right? So that's what you can expect. You're gonna have a really nice foundation where you can work across the board. I only specialized 5 years ago when I just moved to the US. I tried different projects. Then I started focusing only on food. Before that, I had a foundation in everything. Why is that relevant? Because sometimes I'm talking to a food manufacturing business and I tell them about oil and gas. And they think I'm crazy, but I tell them it's the same dynamic because the food chain, right, and the energy chain start at the same place. In many instances, because today you can take sugar canes and actually do energy, right? So there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of benefit from being broad and having this broad foundation. And you get to learn a lot about new industries while also meeting people. So in my first 2 years in consulting, had lots of training, lots of industries, worked across 5 industries, did 15 projects, and networked quite a lot and got promoted a few times. I don't want to dive too deep into consulting, but I thought this introduction would be helpful. So if not committing to stay in consulting, I joined the Global Mobility. I was done with Dubai after 5 years. I was there 6 months. I said, this is too fake. I don't like it, right? A lot of people. But I enjoyed it after a while because I learned how to actually... are you recording this? Oh, I'm in trouble.
No, you don't live there anymore.
I don't live there anymore. No, I'm just joking.
You don't affect your happiness index.
So no, but the thing is, think about it, right? Like any city in the world, when you go there, we are programmed to see the negatives of it. Oh, but this is too cold. Oh, this is too fake and whatever. You learn to like it. I stayed there 5.5 years, not because I forced myself, but because I liked it. And after a while, I felt I needed a different experience. And that's one of the cool things where you can actually join transfer, indefinite transfer, time transfers. They sponsor MBAs. They pay for it. Amazing, right? I chose not to do an MBA. And they actually, if you're not happy in consulting, right? The whole point of the whole value proposition of consulting firms is to actually build people so they can go become their clients eventually. So they help you find a job. Right. I'm a career consultant, so I did not use this one. Happy, right, to talk about the choices I've made. So that was a small intro about consulting. I wanted to keep it brief because that's not what I'm here to talk about. Really, I want to spend it more around food and talk to you more around the food industry. How big is the global population today? Anyone can answer?
9 billion?
7.6 or something.
7.6, yes. How big will it be in 2050?
Too big.
2050.
10 billion.
9.
9, right. So basically, the food industry is basically gonna grow to 9 billion people, and the biggest problem is how do you actually solve it, right? So basically, this is a picture where we are on a cruise ship, working with like the largest cruise line in the world on their food and working with their chefs, how to create like a menu and standardize it around the world. And here, basically, it is my picture with Feeding America. We work a lot in food waste and food banks. We pro bono every Friday. We go work with them, help them think about their supply chain because we have a lot of waste in the US, but we don't have a way to recover it. We also work with McDonald's, like to have a little bit more fun. And also go visit farms, right? Here you can see, that's basically a big grazing facility for cows. And sometimes you also get to do projects in Las Vegas on the Strip and take phone calls, right, with our suits, right? So we do all of that as consultants. But essentially, the biggest problem is how we're going to feed the 9 billion people with constrained resources. So, statistic. Over the last 10,000 years, if you sum all the food that we produced, this is equivalent to the amount of food that we need in the next 25 years, up until 2050. 2050.
Wow.
Okay, just to get a sense. Okay, before we start. So are we gonna eat insects? A lot of people talk about that. Right, yes, grasshoppers, right? Full of proteins. But what else can we do? Right, instead of doing that. So let's first look at the world and why is that a challenge? First of all, increase urban population, right? And really that's driven by China. A lot of people are moving away from tier 3, tier 4 cities to tier 2, tier 1 cities, which are big urban clusters, right? And why is that important? Because urban cities have different way of eating than rural cities, right? They eat more, sandwiches, fast food, protein, chicken, beef, pork.
Supersized.
Everything is supersized, right? Go look in China right now, like the amount of obesity they're having. They never used to have that, right? They used to eat a lot of grain. They were super healthy, skinny. And now all of a sudden they're getting, Yum Brand opening a store a KFC store every day, right? What else is happening? You see here the world city population, 1950 versus 2030. It's gonna be much more clustered in a few key areas. You see here, obviously like Asia, India, right, China. That's where you're gonna have all of that. Changing diets, right? So here you see meat consumption. Why is meat consumption relevant? Why do people look at that? Yes.
It's a measure of wealth. The wealthier you get, the more.
Yes, and it's incredible. People moving from the rural areas of China into the cities, they start eating pork all of a sudden. Guess what happens? Statistic. For every pound of grain that you would have eaten, right? Like if you were in a rural area, if you eat that pound of meat, you need 7 times as much grain to produce that meat because cows eat grains. So all of a sudden, the demand of grains is multiplied by 5 or 7, depending on what you're eating. Whether it's beef, it's 7, pork, it's around 4 or 5, chicken, it's 2, right? Fish, it's 1, right? It's the most efficient.
Like 100 times the water.
And the water, now that's a perfect conduit to my next view, right? So, but before going to water, we require 100% increase in grain production to meet the future demands, okay?
Between what and what?
Between where we are today and what would it take to feed actually all the people coming in. So as our population is increased, the first question is, are arable land increasing? And the question is not, right? If you look at it right here, the arable land is the actual line and the population is increasing. It's actually going down. Why is that? Industrialization. In China, because of industrialization, not only they took away land, but the land that was for agriculture is no longer suitable because they're taking out all these minerals. They have all of this pollution. Water in China is a disaster, right? There has been a mergers of 2 deserts, right? I'm not here giving a negative picture because I'm gonna give you like the light at the end of the tunnel. But this is the case, right? If you look at it, water, the blue planet. You remember the blue planet? You see this drop of land here? That's all the fresh water on Earth. And this is the smaller one, it's all available fresh water on Earth because some of the fresh water is not available, it's actually in the icebergs. By 2050, over 1/2 of the world population, 4.8 billion, will be exposed to severe water scarcity. How's Lebanon and water? Anyone been there?
Well, we have fresh, we have lots of rivers.
Yes! And what happens to our river?
Trash.
Exactly.
How do you get these statistics? Where are you getting this?
So this is actually from the World Health Organization and earthsky.org.
Okay.
So wait, the big drop is all the fresh water?
The big drop is all the water. The small drop is all the fresh water. The smaller drop is all available fresh water.
How is the big drop all the water?
It is actually in big pieces of land, right? If you want to concentrate it in one area, it could be as dense as this.
Oh.
Yeah, all of that, you can actually concentrate it here. It's actually 860 miles diameter if you put it all together.
But it's not actually all in the...
No, but just give you a sense. If you were to condense it in one area and scale it, that's how it would be.
It's not skill, that's
It's all in Kansas, all of it.
So global demand and constraints. So
Vegetarians.
we need to become vegetarians.
It's better for pollution and all that fun stuff.
Maybe. So there's supply constraints, right? Agricultural inputs, right? Declining. Arable land declining. Water availability as well. Climate is changing all of what you have. Okay? Demand is changing. People are, growing in all these cities. I expect to open Seamless and order pad thai at 2 a.m. and, all those crazy things like living in New York, right? Or in Philly, you're accustomed to. Higher quality calories, right? We're eating lots of calories, a lot of calories. We increase middle class and, biofuel and energy, which is basically there's a demand for the agricultural resources beyond agriculture to actually go into biofuel. So essentially, supply is constrained and demand is changing. And you have the geopolitical and technology, right, which is going across. Now, the good thing is in the last 50 years, every challenge we've had, right, our population was able to solve it, right, through technology, through advances. It's not something new, right? We always had the situation. But there's going to require a big change to be able to get there. So this champagne glass, what is that? That's the food chain today. 7 billion people, that's approximately the population. And you have the resources in the bottom, energy, land, and water being constrained. You have the consumers on top that are everlasting and changing, right? And you have 300 to 500 companies globally controlling everything that we eat, 70% of what we eat. Take meat, 3 to 4 companies. Take chocolate, 3 to 4 companies. Take any industry, take alcohol, right? Take beer. Take ADM, Bunge, Cargill. Have you heard about them? The ABCs of the world. They're not farmers. They control everything that the farmer does. They sell him the pesticide. They have storage units. They have trucks. They have ports and ships. So the farmer has no way but to go through them. ABC, ADM, Bunge, Cargill. This is the most powerful institution in the world. Okay, merchants of grain. If you want to read something, read that book. You can see they cut across political systems and institutions to be able to influence that. Okay, so that's what we have, and everyone thinks that they're invincibles. Every one of my company, I go talk to the largest chocolate producer in the world. We're the largest. We control it. We've been controlling it for the last 50 years. I go talk to some of the agricultural producers. We are like $1 gazillion billion. We're so strong and so good. Everyone is working in silo. No one is seeing the big picture, right? And by 2020, we think as AT Kearney that very few companies will control the chain. What's going to happen is that instead of Nestle competing with Mars, competing with Mondelez, right? We're going to have systems of companies affiliated together, not necessarily merging, but forming partnership, will work and compete with each other. So Cargill with McDonald's, right? McDonald's just announced yesterday they're moving out of frozen beef. They're going to have fresh beef burger. Huge change. If you think of McDonald's, 3 key attributes they have. Consistent, whether you're in Japan or you're in the US, you're going to have the same taste. Safe, you're not going to get the food poisoning after that. And basically affordable, low cost, right? And quick. And by moving to fresh, right? What does it mean? One of those is going to break, right? Either it's not going to be safe, or it's not going to be a low cost, right? Or it's not going to be consistent. So how do those companies, it's changing their DNA. We're telling McDonald's, change what you are, what you've been for the last 50 years. How is that possible? That's why I think that being outside the industry, not part of them, is a great position, because this is going to go through massive, massive disruption. So what is the technology? What's the technology role? So here you get to see the investment of Silicon Valley in agricultural technology. Okay, so here you can see the drones, right? Like how they're doing the irrigation, precision farming. That's here the GPS. Have you ever seen this picture here? This one here. This is basically, yes.
that vertical farming?
Yes, this is vertical. This is the next big thing. We're going to have warehouses where basically you don't have land. You actually have like a small sponge, right, for lack of a better word. And you actually plant in it and you have it there. We work with incubators in Chicago. And basically what they showed us is they're creating a fridge. Imagine your fridge at home is going to have all the parsley and everything planted in it. And as you're preparing the salad, you just like, instead of opening the fridge, you actually take out like, whatever plant and then you eat it. Even more, think that you can link it up with your Amazon account. So inside the fridge, you never run out of milk. Yes, you can have like a scanner where, that sees, like you put the milk bottles in there. And whenever it goes low, it just goes to Amazon Prime, order Amazon Prime, and you never run out of milk. And the door of your fridge has all of this. This is the future. This is the future. What's the problem? The problem is people are working by themselves. Agricultural firms, they're doing it alone. Incubators are doing alone. Big food companies are working alone. And there's no system that puts them all together. Okay, that's really the big problem, right? And we need a lot of collaboration. And in my mind, because of the competition shifting to systems, that's what we actually need to do. And consumer demographics are changing a lot. Households, right? Single households, they don't know how to cook. We're so lazy, we don't know how to cook. I don't know, I can do a few dishes, but compared to my parents and compared to my aunt, I just, nothing compared. We're time deprived. Our eating meals are actually shifting. We like snacking. We like to eat all day long, right? It drives me crazy. People eat all day long, and coming from the Middle East, we're not used to have that. We used to go sit down, have like a big lunch, and we're done, and then 5 hours later have big dinner. But no, people are snacking and eating more frequently. So people are changing very, very fast. And when you look at the demographic, right, I'm not going to bore, there's a lot of data here, but people are looking at healthy, organic, right, local. But what does that mean? Do they understand what is local and what is organic and what is healthy? No. People have no clue. They use them interchangeably. It's local, but what does it mean if it's local and it's mass-produced? Right? It's organic. What does it mean if it's organic, but it is full of worms, right? That you can get. Chipotle. You followed what happened in Chipotle, right? They did not segregate their kitchen between meat and between produce. As a result, they had E. coli. Yeah. Going and addressing those trends comes at a cost. If you look at the food chain, how it was 50 years ago, all the birds were free range. Right? All of the cows were, grazing outdoors. There was no feedlots where you put them in and actually feed them, right? Without taking you to all the details, right? And, we want to go back, but we still expect to get the chicken on our table for $2. How is that possible? Right? That's the shift that has to happen. Shift in thinking. And not everything is bad, in my opinion, and please challenge me. Not vegetarian, I don't think extreme vegetarian and vegan and you don't eat lactose and you're doing all of those things. Probably this is a little bit extreme, right? But where we are is an extreme as well. Is there a balance, right? A right balance between the two? The diets keeps on changing. A few years ago, Atkins was like the big thing where people just ate meat and chicken, right? Today, they say eat carbs. Tomorrow they're gonna say no, eat meat again. So the studies, when I look at them with skepticism. Who's paying for that study? It's like the tobacco industry, right? Who's paying for the study so that I know if to believe it or not? Without going, too much into details, but like big food companies have an interest. This country is built on lobbies. You know that, right? So food activists, that's why they're here. They're shaping consumer behavior. Stop GMO. We don't want GMO. How are you going to feed the world without GMO? All GMO is bad. Let's move out from titles. Okay? Some GMO is bad. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Of course, when you start mixing species, you're familiar with GMO, genetically modified organisms, right? And some of them are bad, right? But not everything. You need that to be able, like the cherry tomatoes that you have, initially that's genetically modified. We did not have cherry tomatoes by nature. Big foods, my favorite slide. Big food, what is big food? That's the green, the blue bar here, you see, and versus the red bar. So you see, the blue bar is all of the top 25 food companies. They've lost over the last few years, $15 billion of market share to smaller companies. When you go buy yogurt, do you buy Danone or Chobani?
Chobani.
Right. People love smaller brands. Okay. Remember this because I'm going to link it to Lebanon. They love smaller brands. Those big, evil top 25 food companies, because of activisms, they don't like them. Our research predicts that in the next 5 years, they're going to lose $50 billion, the big food companies. That's huge. They're publicly listed. They have shareholder always wanting growth. You open their 10K, which is basically the annual report. Everyone tells you, we're coming with the next big thing. Okay, I've been waiting for the next big thing for a very long time, and usually it's packaging changes or basically adding avocado with their hummus, right? You know, what's the next big thing? You know, tell me what's the next big innovation? It's not coming in. The next big thing is coming from small, nimble innovators that are creating that. So basically, all of the food companies are creating VCs, venture capital funds, to go acquire those food companies. Chobani, my favorite example, Turkish guy out of New York, inherited the business, dying. All of the consultants, market is small, declining, go out. What did he do? Counterintuitive. He went and said, no, it's marketed in the wrong way. This is not seen as a healthy snack, right? You know, small portion, you know, with flavors. You know, people in Greece, they're very attached to their yogurt. Tell them you're gonna put, you know, what do you eat with the Chobani? Like, there's so many flavors. This one has, you know, strawberries, etc. Put the strawberry in yogurt, they tell you you're crazy. Here, you're just throwing it. We are emotionally attached to our foods. We refuse to have kale in our tabouleh. We refuse to do that. And the Greeks refused to do that. What did he do? No, I want to westernize it. When the Japanese brought their food from Japan to the US, they did not do California roll, right? That's not from Tokyo. It's not. So in summary, you know, people really care. Fresh local quality is overlapping. You know, people are aging, there's density, and regulation is you know, it's really important to actually get the feedback from consumers to have that. So, you know, obviously we work with a lot of the NGOs, right? It's important to actually think about this as not just corporate life, but this has more meaning to just doing that. So going to my favorite chapter, right? After this small introduction, I want to give some for Q&A. So what are some of the implications on the Middle East and on Lebanon in particular?
I think that with the Middle East, they have such distinct food and beverage, like, you know, that are specific to those countries, and it's been, you know, there forever, for ages and ages. So I think that it might be, you know, a little harder to change that aspect of it, like where, like you were talking about, like the meat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna have like chicken shawarma, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
gonna be there. But that's just
It's
like
gonna be there because it's been there forever.
That's the tradition, and like
Yeah.
Arab like stick to their stuff.
Arab
like,
stick
you
to
know
their
what I
stuff, you know, we're attached to our history, yes.
In the Middle East, everything is already locally grown, or most.
Thank you. Everything is locally
So
grown.
you just like go to your farm and sell it outside
Yeah.
your front house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, now that we're talking about opportunities, yes.
Food scarcity is becoming a realer problem.
It's becoming a big problem. In Saudi Arabia, in the 70s, there was an oil crisis. So they started drilling. They found an aquifer, a whole layer of water underneath the desert. They created al-mara'i and all of those. Now they have no more water, right? It's becoming a big problem.
You're talking about people being emotionally attached to food. So I see that kind of in Lebanon, like Tabouleh, it's like a big deal, or like we kind of take pride in that.
Yeah.
Like some of our dishes, like, I don't know.
We spend our time and energy creating the biggest tabouleh dish and arguing whether it's Lebanese and what is Syrian and Palestinian, and that's where we spend our energy, right? Yeah.
I was going to say the way that we eat also informs a lot about like changes in the food because we take time to eat fresh ingredients and a lot of legumes, a lot of vegetables, and there's less waste and we actually sit down to eat.
And our dishes takes forever to prepare. Yeah, you had kibbeh labani or kibbeh b'laban. Did you see how they prepare it? They wrap it like the day before and they keep it there until it ferments and all of it takes a lot of time. It's slow food. Slow food. But guess what? This is on trend. Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for the Middle East.
This is an opportunity. Let me share with you why. Global challenges, supply constraints, arable land, water, disaster, changing demand, moving fresh, local quality, nature of competition, moving away from big companies to small companies. Ethnic cuisine are on the rise, and all of those big companies that have been selling us pizza and whatever, they'll be moving away from that.
Put Lebanon on the map.
Thank you.
Positive way.
Yes. Supply constraint, 4.8 cubic kilometers of renewable water in Lebanon. 35% of arable land. We're still very primitive in how we do agriculture. We haven't seen the world, we have no clue. We're still arguing about primitive thing of water and electricity and all of this stuff, but agriculture is a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity for all of us, right? Not only, let's not throw it on the government. We don't have private investors going in and looking at that as an opportunity. We always see challenges.
Yeah. Well, because the government.
Because the government, we always blame the government, but
they do make it a challenge out there for people.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
But the thing is, I think it's the beauty of Lebanon and also the fact that we respect our farmers. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to come and do some major agriculture.
Industrialization, that's bad, right? Exactly. How you do it sustainable. Doesn't mean that I'm proposing we go, let's industrialize all of that. But is there a middle ground between doing nothing and full industrialization? It's not black and white. Second thing, Lebanese food is minimally processed, right? Several dishes have been trending. We have data points. We know that people love hummus.
Yeah.
They told me, I don't know Lebanese food, but I eat hummus every day. I said, okay. Sorry, let me just make a couple of points and then no global Lebanese consumer food companies on the world scene, right? I'll show you a few examples. It's, seriously, we are entrepreneurs in our blood. How come we haven't figured out how to take a brand, not a restaurant? We're very good at having restaurants.
Yeah.
How can we take a brand globally? How can we have the right governance? How we can have the right discipline to create something inspired, whether it is, inspired or from the region, abroad. And then the rise of ethnic cuisine, they're on the rise. People are looking for, an opportunity, right? Lebanon is there.
So is Lebanon in your portfolio of consulting?
It did. We opened an office in Lebanon, right? We have 10 people based there. In my mind, right, to go and claim that, no, I'm helping Lebanese entrepreneurs, not yet, right? But what I'm doing is working with big food companies here and, helping them with their innovation agenda and screening new ideas. And whenever I can, right, I try to include that. That's one way of activism. Yes?
Question. When we're talking about how, ethnic cuisine is on the rise, is it dangerous to appropriate Middle Eastern cuisine, when you have, roasted red pepper hummus, and then Arab are like, that's not real hummus,
Yeah.
People really like it. But are we losing, our sense of, the integrity of the food or the tradition of the food by doing stuff like that?
Absolutely, we are.
And is that worth it? Is it good to do
That's
that?
a debate. I think it is.
Right?
I think it is. Let me tell you why.
I don't think that's
No, it's exactly right. I think if you look at, I'll answer your question in a few ways, and I have a perspective on it in a minute, but I'm just noticing time as well. But my friends who are Lebanese who own restaurants in New York and in the US, their most negative reviews come from Lebanese who say your dishes are not authentic. Okay, and they struggle. Because, Lebanese consumers out of the target market is very small, right? They're selling it to the normal American, that wants to have different flavors in their dishes. What do? Are you authentic and stick to what you have and try to change everyone and go fight the world? Or do you adapt a little bit to your cuisine, make it less intimidating and more on trend? I feel the latter. Go do authentic, but then do it in stages. First, establish it, base it, whatever. Today in New York, you have authentic Japanese food. Okay, but this is a niche, right? Please.
So, assuming you wanted to start a consumer company that's like, I don't know, like halal or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think are the gaps
Yes.
you could fill, at least in the US market?
Perfect. Can I pose your question because I'm gonna get there? So Lebanese dishes have superfood ingredients. I'm gonna get there, but I'm just like building my story. Frikeh. Okay, wheat, nuts, almonds, chicken, spices. Okay, 3 superfood. What's a superfood? It's a designated ingredient that has all the nutrients that are possible that are good for you. Broccoli is an example.
But you know, our almonds, the vet professor said that it's not
Well, people have different opinions. It's clearly in the top of mind of consumers, right? That's what they buy. Everybody talks about it.
At least in the Western world, that is.
In the Western world, you'll always find people to say, whatever someone says is a BS, right?
I think the criticism is more like, okay, there's a trend for acai berry. You're not supposed to drink acai berry all day long.
Is it a fad?
You're supposed to eat a balanced diet that has all these different ingredients.
Yeah.
Stuff like legumes and
Exactly. And don't take it to the extreme. My point is that it's healthy. Tabouleh, parsley, tomatoes, bulgur, onions, garlic. So you heard about quinoa, right?
Yeah.
I had my quinoa the first time 2 years ago. I was really surprised, why don't we do the bulgur as the next quinoa?
We should.
La, why? Horrible.
It changes the whole flavor of the tabouleh.
No, he's saying.
No, not the tabouleh. Make dishes out of bulgur.
The way quinoa is such a oh my god, it's healthy, this, that, and the other. Why can't bulgur be the next
We
one?
are emotionally attached to our dishes. We are. That's my thing. Is debatable. I'm here to actually provoke you because I think we should change if we wanna be able to take it. Yes.
I get the point you're saying because we are the ones that have to bring forth this change.
Absolutely.
Because we are the ones who know how to make these dishes.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes. So za'atar, mjaddara, right? I can keep on going. The list is long, right? Only a handful have been successful. Rifa'i, the nut company, right? Nuts. If you read it everywhere, very healthy, on trend. It's people like to snack, right? They've successfully opened a plant in Sweden and Lebanon, but beyond that, I don't see them here. I don't see in Soho, next to Shobani, Rifa'i, Apache chocolate company, very successful, by the way. Very, very innovative with their packaging. My major food clients, always look at them as an acquisition target, right? Samsung, a friend of mine, opened it in New York, right? Like more of a restaurant, right? But apart from that, and I'm sure there's a few others, right? Very few have been successful. And really, how do you take a family-led business to global, right? Or how do you start something from scratch?
Do you know about?
Yes.
How is it called? The Lebanese place.
I don't know it. In Montreal, a restaurant.
No, like the place.
Oh yes, of course. He sold it, the chain, the grocery chain. Yes, I remember the name. He actually went, a very successful guy, used to get like cargoes every week from Lebanon and had a grocery. Successfully sold his chain right in Montreal. Some success stories. So what do we need to do? That was your question. To actually be successful in Lebanon. In my mind, the first thing is curating Lebanon. Okay, made in France, made in Italy. Made in Italy, I think of apparel. Made in France, I think of cheese and wine, right? Even Chinese companies, try to actually have the stamp of made in France because it's associated with quality. If you say made in Lebanon, I think of ISIS, right? Like as an American. Nobody knows, what is made in Lebanon. We need to curate Lebanon, right? How do you curate Lebanon? Yeah, the government should do that. Okay, yes, sure. We can do NGOs, right? There's many ways we can be activists on social media, right? We can organize ourselves to do that. It should be a brand or a food destination. Educate the customers. People have no clue. Let's stop debating about whether it's from Aleppo or from Beirut or, It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Like, eventually, an Israeli company went in and did hummus very successfully. Good for them. We should learn from that. In my mind, we should learn from that. Adapt our cuisine to local taste buds. I see your point, right? Like you're to saying, don't touch my tabouleh.
Like I hate, the girls in my class are always like, oh, I love hummus, and they come with the containers, and I'm like, get it away, I'll make you some, like I'll give you a recipe.
Right,
and all
I
that.
agree with you.
Because it just changes it.
And they consider it the dip. They put the carrot and the hummus. Can you believe it? Yes, But guess what? Guess what? This is a good thing. I'm advocating that this is a good thing.
But I feel like it's like
I think it's wrong. Yeah, like I think the only thing with making it so modern, I guess you could say, is that it really takes away the cultural and
I agree.
actual.
It does. But then if you keep the culture as is, it's always gonna be a niche and in a certain area.
It's like Panda Express and like Chipotle and Taco Bell. Like it's not actual Mexican food or Chinese food, but it's
not
like the modernized version of it.
And I think you need a Panda Express to be able to go into the Chinese food.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to actually first, level set, give them what they want. Then when they give them what they want, tell them, guess what? This is really bad. We have even better, right? And that's my perspective. I'm being provocative. I may be wrong, right? Yes.
Isn't a restaurant like that, like Yalla? Have you guys ever had Yalla?
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's like
so it's pretty much like the same idea of like having like Middle Eastern foods and stuff. It even has like when you like read it off, it's like cuisines from Lebanon. But it doesn't taste like any like authentic or anything.
Anything authentic,
but
correct.
it's at the same time, it's like or gotta eat a pita. Have you guys had that?
Oh, it tastes like crap.
Exactly. But
sorry, we're all from California.
Yeah.
You know
For people who don't know,
yeah,
they're just restaurants that like are like Middle Eastern based, and they kind of like have like the like hummus and all of that. But
and I'm not trying to say, hey, start with creating something super fake. Maybe there's something more authentic that you can create, but it's important to detach ourselves from the emotions of how food is supposed to be and be living in our past. And let's look forward at what the consumer wants and be open-minded for what the consumer wants. Because if you want to go change the consumer, bring a dish they cannot pronounce, and put it on the dishes that we have today, guess what? The odds are we're going to fail. We need to actually have one of those flex, right? Value chain, my friend who's been working in Tabouleh, who has like a restaurant, she says it's so expensive to get parsley. So expensive, and it goes spoiled in a day. It's so expensive. How are we gonna do that, right? Are we gonna take out and put kale instead of parsley? Oh, God forbid, right? What are we gonna do, right? So we need to actually really think of the value chain. How do we do it? Do we actually take positions in there? And then review the go-to-market, right? Do we really only need to focus on restaurants, food service, restaurants? Can we go into groceries? Can we actually, do something, more innovative? And here, really, just one last thought, before I conclude. I think that I'm advocating a change. It is provocative. It is debatable. You may agree. You may not agree with me.
I like it.
Thank you.
I want a copy of your presentation.
Thank you.
To like do this.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yes. We'll all back you up.
That's the thing. I really think we have a unique opportunity. While we're in a more academic forum, right? You can do that. You have more time, right? I'm available, right? If anyone is interested, to join, you can do it through consulting. I like to think that through consulting, you actually learn the industry before trying to actually do it. It's important to have a foundation. And basically, once, my longer term plan and aspiration is to be able to give back in a way or in another, whether it is through the Middle East and employing people in the Middle East or actually doing it here in the US.
Just back on the innovate food topic, my family owns a Peruvian chicken restaurant in the Virginia area, and we actually have a lot of Lebanese kind of just hummus, tabouleh, and stuff like that, and the people really like it.
Right.
Just trying to incorporate everything.
Exactly.
That's like in SoCal, there's only maybe 3 or 4 like Arabi markets.
Yes.
In like Anaheim and Corona, whatever, I don't know what that is, but it's in SoCal. And they don't just sell like Arabi products, right? So they open it up and like most of their markets actually Asian or like Mexican, but they still have that Arabi like outlet for people. So they get to make money through like 3 or 4 different communities,
right,
but still exposing our own brands and our own food and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And they're really, really, really successful.
And my question is, think about mjaddara or think about one of those hard dishes to pronounce should we rebrand it?
Yeah, because it's even
right. Should we, like California maki roll, right? It's the exact same thing. What are learnings we can learn from other cuisines? If we take an Italian and then show him the mac and cheese, What is he gonna think?
Wow.
But mac and cheese is delicious. I love mac and cheese.
I have Italian vets here from Rome, and they're like, "You've never heard of Alfredo?"
Yeah, my client now is in.
They've never heard of it.
My client is in Cincinnati, and they have like this chili thing where it's like spaghetti with chili, right? Like, and I have an Italian working for me there, and he said, "Oh, please don't touch that." Yeah.
If you could coin the Made in Lebanon, like, in your, or not coin, but like in your mind, what would it be? Made in Lebanon. What would your
How would I do that, or what do you mean?
No, like, what would you like to be known as Made in Lebanon?
A food destination, gourmet food destination, known for its unique flavors and spices. Doesn't mean spicy, you know, we always get defensive when you say spices, right? Known for its flavors and spices and healthy food, right? It's really, people can come to Lebanon, and I guarantee you every time I had someone from the US come to visit me, they have a blast in terms of food. It's not about partying and whatever only, it's about food as well.
Well, like where I live, because I'm from Cleveland, and like when I say I'm like Lebanese, like everyone like is like, oh, I love your food. That's the first thing that comes. Because we have a lot of like out of the stores. Like I have two that are like 10 minutes away from me, not even. And then there's like restaurants. There's like a whole chain called Aladdin's. And then we have like other different restaurants that open up, and everyone goes to them.
Everyone goes there. And I got a bottle of wine to my boss, right? He's, and he was surprised. You have wine in Lebanon?
Yeah.
Think how easy is it? We have everything, but no one is doing anything about it.
Well, wait, on the 73rd Independence Day, so I live in DC, we had a wine exhibition at the embassy, and so many people came to taste the different wines. And we have a lot of micro wineries and microbreweries that are popping up. And keep in mind that the vineyards, it takes about 10 years to make a bottle.
Right.
So now they're coming in.
Now they're coming in. That's fantastic. We need more of that.
Just ask about it all the time. Lebanese wine. It's becoming a thing.
With regard to venture capital and investment in the Lebanon food space, do you know of any?
I don't know. I don't believe there's any. I don't know. Let me know if you hear about any. I know Seamless, right? They tried it Beirut delivery in 1999 before Seamless was created. Same concept. They failed. They failed. Poor management, lack of adoption, low internet connectivity. So yeah, you have to realize that, right? You know. Yes.
So in regards to food and beverage, I'm actually a food and beverage intern right now. What exactly do you do right now in your current profession with food and beverage? Like, what's your
now I work with the second largest grocery in the world, and basically I'm taking the periphery of the store, because center of store is basically where all the canned food is, and it's actually massively declining. So I'm doing a big transformation of the periphery of the store. So basically really reimagining how, we call it grocerants. It's not a restaurant and it's not a grocery. You go to Whole Foods, you have your sushi at the bar, right? So you're trying to reimagine that whole space. Part of what we're doing specifically, I am leading the PMO, which is Project Management Office for the entire transformation. 2 pilot stores that we're redesigning it. I have a team that is actually showing them how to actually reimagine their assortment in cakes and in charcuterie. I have a team to actually reimagine how the service of different dishes should be prepared. Should we actually make it made to order in the store, or should we actually bring it done? And part of that is screening for trends and doing all of that. And then also setting up fresh kitchens. So basically, a lot of the food doesn't have to be prepared in the store, and it could be prepared centrally.
Which grocery chain?
It's one of the top ones. Yeah.
What?
It's not ethical.
I think it's confidential.
So, what was the answer to my next question?
I think she wants a packaged answer where it's something like you should brand, let's say, manouche as a brand of cedar in the frozen section of it. I think that's the type of like detail she's looking for, and I was looking for.
Right. I don't have the answer. I think that it should be a bit broader than that. I would propose, we need to think about it together, which is what would resonate the best? For me, it is spices and flavors, healthy spices and flavor. Right, that's when you need to think about when you think of Lebanon. It could be right or wrong, but that's in my mind. Thinking about that as a destination for anything that has unique flavor characteristics.
You're awesome.
When are Western taste buds able to handle all of that?
Well, if you look at the
Something for
perfect. I look forward. So if you look at let's look at previous behavior to see if this is gonna happen or not. They adapted to hummus, right? Like if you look at Ilili, what they're doing is taking Ilili is a restaurant in New York. They put a duck shawarma and they put a pomegranate in it, and they love it.
Or they put lobster, is it lobster in the hummus or crab or something like that in the hummus, and that's actually really good.
No, I'm looking at crab.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, Bahige. Talk. We all love food. It's something we all love to talk about as well. So Jade wants to share this video before we can all go and eat food. So I'm going to show this, and then after that, you guys should head to lunch, which is on the second floor. You just take up the escalator, it's two flights up. We'll be around to direct you and tell you exactly where it is, and the LCNs there will be there as well. And then we'll come back here at 2 p.m. For the third workshop series. So I'll play that, and then.
This is nothing special, just a cool video.
Yeah, it's a cool video that Jade wants to share with you. Wait, let me make sure the sound's. Wait, the sound's not working.
Is this on YouTube?
Já tive uma ideia.
I can pass on the
Vou parar.
سيدو فريميدو حانيدو سيريدو نعميدو كتريدو والغميدو يلا لا ابداع طازة شقف تسوى المازة حمراء أو سمراء كله ماشي يلا حطي وزيدي وما تخبي عيد حشيشة قلبي خرجانو بده قواشي رقيها وعجنيها فرديها واشطحيها افتليها وبرميها واخبزيها عالنار لا ابداع طازة شقف تسوى المازة حمراء أو سمراء كله ماشي يلا حطي وزيدي وما تخبي عيد حشيشة قلبي زهقان وبدوش خاشي
Do you have a business card?
I do, yes.
Are you based in Lebanon?
I am. Thanks.